Welcome to No Border, No Country. We're coming to you from Fair's Border School in McAllen, Texas. I'm joined as always by Judge Matt O'Brien. And we've got some very special guests today. Matt, why don't you introduce them for everybody?
We have Art Del Cueto, former Border Patrol agent and former president of the Border Patrol Agents Union. And we have Sheriff Mark Lamb. Gentlemen, how are you today?
Fantastic.
We're doing
happy
great.
to be here.
Yeah.
All right, so why don't you tell us a little bit about Border School and what it is, what we're doing here?
You know, Fair's been great about getting sheriffs together, whether it was Hold the Feet to the Fire back with D.C., and now we're doing the border schools where we're going to Texas and looking to go to Arizona. But really what it's designed to do is get as many sheriffs and as many people in government to these border schools so that they can learn more about what's been going on and what's going on as it relates to the border, crime, drugs, human trafficking, all of it. We've got some really great speakers today and looking forward to having a good day.
Awesome, thanks.
No, absolutely. Look, I'm really happy to be here. This is the first time I've been to the border school. I've been with FAIR for quite some time. Even in my capacity when I was with the union, I was able to go to a lot of the Feet to the Fire, which was fantastic. I'm really looking forward to this. Mark Lamb's one of the speakers. I'm one of the speakers. So I'm looking forward to being able to interact and talk to a lot of the sheriffs. And I think one of the things from the border school that I hope we can send a message out is, look, we're in a better spot now than we have been before as far as border security. But we got to continue moving forward. And the only way we do that is that we pass the proper laws to continue moving forward. Or else what we're going to have is when that, the politics flip, it's going to be even a worse mess than we had seen before.
Can I just add, that's one of the big issues, Judge, you know this. If you don't make the changes with the law, this falls now on Congress's and on Senate's shoulders. They've gotten the funding. We've got more Border Patrol agents. We've gotten more technology that should be coming to the border. But it can change overnight with an executive order that takes it all the way back to where we were for the last 4 years. So I've said over and over again, now it kind of falls on Congress and Senate's shoulders to fix this and get some long-term solutions.
Absolutely.
Now, we've seen the data how since the new administration came in, that the numbers at the border have significantly dropped. But what is the concern now, absent what you were saying about we need the more laws, but right now for the next 3 years at a minimum, what's the big concern? Is it the fentanyl? Is it drug trafficking? Or what's the threat at the border other than those waves of people that we saw the last 4 years?
Art and I will both come from different perspectives, him from the federal side, the Border Patrol side. I'll talk on state side. We're seeing a reduction in the fentanyl poisonings, not a reduction necessarily in what's been coming in. Art and I were talking about this yesterday. For the last 4 years, they brought in so much drugs that it just flooded the market. And there was a huge supply. I expect that the demand will probably go up and the supply will start to drop a little bit. The pricing's probably going to come back up. We're seeing more methamphetamine deaths in Arizona, which has now overtaken fentanyl. But I think we're going to continue to see crime in this country. We let some really bad people in this country, and we've got to remove them. And obviously, at the pace we're at, we won't remove them in 4 years. So there's going to be we've got to really target some of these really bad people. I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about the compression within the cartels as well. I'm concerned about the violence that is going to go on. When you go from making $500 million a year to $13 billion, and then all of a sudden you cut that back, because that human trafficking piece was one of the bigger pieces over the last 4 years. It's a cash flow business where normally it takes a while to get their product to the consumer. The consumer buys it. It takes a while, and it's expensive to get their money back to Mexico. When you have that influx of people coming to this country, they're bringing cash in hand, and they're handing it to the cartel, and the cartel had just huge amounts of cash on hand. And so I'm concerned that now when you remove that cash, there's going to be a lot of compression, a lot of fighting amongst the cartels for what's left on the table, whether it's drugs or human trafficking.
No, that's absolutely right. Look, and we bring up great points. Sheriff Lamb brings up a great point. When you start talking about the billions and billions of dollars that they've made, especially the last 4 years, they're not going to stop. These are career criminals. These are families that are career criminal families. They've been doing this for a long time. They don't stop. They've been making billions. They're not going to go get another job, right, overnight, but they're going to continue to be creative. As someone that I've seen the different methods that the cartels have used to traffic humans, to traffic drugs into the United States, both as a career law enforcement and also by living on the border my entire life, we're going to see them continue to get more creative. They're not going to stop. We're going to start seeing body carriers, I believe, again, like they did before, where they would ingest the drugs. They would utilize different individuals, children, women, to ingest the drugs and bring them into the United States. I think we need to start looking into tunnels and everything else. They're not going to stop. And we have to remember, they have made billions. They don't work within a budget. So they have a lot of money to be able to utilize for as many methods as they can to continue to introduce both, human smuggling and drugs into the United States.
So if you watch the television news on this, you see all these places declaring themselves sanctuary jurisdictions and saying this is a purely federal problem. But we know it's not. So why is it so important for state and local law enforcement to get involved in the immigration issue?
Well, I'll take that one right off the bat. Look, either you want the federal government to take care of it or you don't want the federal government. You can't have it either way. You can't sit there and say it's a federal problem when it comes to immigration, and then when the federal government steps up and starts going into these places where they know that they have a huge number of illegal aliens, you can't say, oh, wait a minute, now we don't want you here. Either you allow them to do the job or you don't allow them to do the job. And when it comes to sanctuary cities, I think the problem is they've created that magnet for criminal behavior. They've created that magnet pretty much saying, if you've committed a crime, if you're here illegally, you can come and rest easy. You can live here. I think that emboldens a lot of the criminals throughout the country. That's what these sanctuary cities have done. But there's also cities out there that have not claimed to be sanctuary cities, but they work as if they were sanctuary cities. They use all their sanctuary city policies because they still want that federal money. So I think that's something that we need to look into. We need to call all of those cities out and tell them, hey, you want the feds' involvement or you don't? Are you happy with that criminal magnet in your communities?
The federal government's responsible for protecting our borders from people coming into this country illegally. What comes after that, people don't talk about this a lot. I talk about it a lot. Is always the mess is always cleaned up by local law enforcement. So you don't stop somebody at the border. You don't stop those drugs. Now it's not Border Patrol or it's not ICE or it's not any of the federal partners that show up to pick up the dead body when they overdose from a fentanyl poisoning. It's not even an overdose. When they have a fentanyl poisoning or when they die from a methamphetamine poisoning. These are the types of things that we at local law enforcement clean up. And the other piece, when you talk about working with the federal government, it is ICE doesn't have the resources, neither does Border Patrol have the resources to go find the people that have been in this country illegally, the criminals, and they really don't know the communities as well as your local law enforcement does, your state, especially your sheriffs, knowing where your people are, who the bad guys are, where the criminals are. And I just don't understand how it's even possible to keep our community safe if you don't have that collaboration between the federal government and the local government. And I see these sanctuary cities. First of all, I think it's borderline illegal in most cases because it says you cannot, 1824, USC 1824 says you cannot conceal, harbor, or shield anybody that comes into this country illegally, but you know to be here illegally. And I think when you declare yourself a sanctuary city, you're saying, we know they're in here illegally, but we're not going to do anything about it. And I think that it creates problems for local law enforcement, even though these politicians, they do it politically, but they're not the ones that clean up the mess. It's the actual local law enforcement that has to clean up the mess.
One of the things that we've seen lately is the creation of more detention space. Alligator Alcatraz, Cornhusker Clink, these things. Why are those important and where are they coming at to oppose this, the other side, as far as, I know they're filing lawsuits and all this, but why is having these kind of facilities important?
Well, bed space is one of the most important things. Like, yeah, you can remove people. If they choose to not be removed, they have that option. Anybody listening right now, if you hear about Alligator Alcatraz or you hear about Lone Star Lockup or the Speedway one in Indiana, and I think there's now another one somewhere else, Nebraska. When you talk about these places, they have an option to be removed and go back to their country. If they go to that facility, it's because they chose not to. It's because they're trying to fight the fact that they came to this country illegally. And so those folks need a place to be until they get this whole due process thing that the left fought so hard to try to get. That was the whole premise behind the Kilmar Obrego Garcia issue. They didn't care about him. He was a pawn in the game they're playing of trying to bog the system down. And so these facilities, let me tell you something. Anybody out there who thinks just because they have a name of Alligator Alcatraz or Lone Star Lockup, the federal requirements, most sheriffs do not even want to partake in giving up bed space because the requirements of housing them are too high. It's too expensive. You got to have a barber and they have to have 4 sets of clothes. The requirements for them are far greater than the requirements for Americans who are being detained for crimes. And so you need these places. You don't have enough bed space. We have to create more facilities to house the people until they're removed from this country. And you can thank the left for the amount of money that'll have to be paid to house them until they're removed from the country, because it should be a really simple process. One more thing to that, and it's kind of off topic but on topic, is this administration has now authorized military guys to come in and be the judges and decide whether these folks need to be removed or not. The judge knows a lot more about this on an asylum case, but on these really simple cases of people that are just here illegally or have really no claim, come from countries where there should be no asylum claim, these judges can quickly deal with those and get them on their way and solve that due process issue.
That's important. The due process issue is very important because, look, for many times I would be out in the field and we'd catch groups, over 100. And you'd have these 100 plus groups inside the detention facilities. And we would know, the agents would know when you detain them, when you do your first interview, you'd know that they didn't really have an asylum claim. You'd have individuals, I hate to say it, but we've heard it, the military age men that had left their family behind. And you would ask them, well, why are you here? I'm here to claim asylum. Well, what's your reason? Because I can't find a job. And we all know that's not an asylum, that's not a real reason for asylum. And now I think that's important because it'll give the opportunity during the initial arrest to be able to turn back those that don't have a real asylum. You stop clogging up the entire system when it comes with the courts. I come from a background where I also worked the state prison for a long time. And I can tell you, I was amazed from working the state prison and seeing what was supplied to the individuals that were detained, that were arrested. And then you turn around now from the federal standpoint, like Sheriff Lamb says, and everything that they have to do for that federal detention facility is very strict, right? And you got to remember also, first and foremost, they could say, I don't want this claim, I want to go back to my country. So they're choosing to still be in these detention facilities. And the other thing, it's a detention facility. It's not a prison, it's not a jail, it's not meant for a long-term stay. People need to understand that.
Yeah. Well, it's not punitive.
That's the most important thing. It's a civil administrative detention because if you look at this, what happens to these people at the end of it? They simply go back to the country where they have citizenship. They're not being locked up and deprived of anything. And this may sound strange coming from a former immigration judge, but frankly, I think that the due process claims have been stretched to the nth degree. Mm-hmm. It's a real low burden on the government in immigration court. Basically, if you can show alienage and removability, the form I-213 that I'm sure you're very familiar with, you've won the case. And then the only question is, does the person qualify for relief, which should be the exception, not the rule. And a lot of the open borders powers have stretched this to the nth degree and made it appear that unless the alien gets 10 bites at the apple, there's somehow been a due process violation. But what due process rights are we protecting? Because these are people that don't have any right to be in the United States at all. And now we're in this situation that it ain't over until the alien wins.
Exactly. And that's the problem, that how many bites of the apple do they get? How many appeals do you get? To me, it should be clear cut. And I guess I'm a little biased because I've seen it firsthand with the amounts of individuals that I've apprehended and I've seen come across that border. I would go as far as to say that 98% of the individuals that I apprehended during the 4 years of the last administration did not have a real asylum claim at all.
Yeah. And the other issue, Judge, we talked about this the last time we were together, and I think you put it very well. When the Founding Fathers wrote the about due process, and they used the word persons, They weren't ever talking about people. I don't believe they were talking about people that were in this country illegally. That was a foreign concept to them at that point. They were talking about all persons, men, women, children, slaves, everything that encompassed what our country was at the time. And I think that there's been this whole group of people that have taken that and used it the way they want it. I don't know that my definition's right either. I would love to see the Supreme Court define, because I think if you give American rights to everybody, regardless of whether they're here, an American citizen or not, it dilutes down what should be a really special thing. And I think that I would love to see it. I don't know that it will, but I would love to see this issue resolved in the Supreme Court, because I think we are erroneously applying that due process clause to the people. Mm-hmm.
Sheriff Lamb, we need to wrap up here soon, but tell people about Sheriff on the Border and what they can see on there, and Art, you as well, the content you're doing for FAIR and what you're doing on behalf of FAIR out there.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to be working as a law enforcement advisor for FAIR, and what we've been doing is trying to bring you as much content as we can that's related to the border, 287G, all the different things that we stand for here at FAIR. And so on the border, we try to bring in great guests, predominantly probably sheriffs and congressmen and people on the Hill that are dealing with this problem on a daily basis. So please go check it out, On the Border with Sheriff Lamb. I think we're doing 1 to 2 podcasts. We'd love to be doing more. It's just logistics right now with the world on fire. It seems to be hard to get people out of their fire suits and get in and do a podcast with us. But we're doing that podcast, and it's been great. And please, if you have a chance, go check out fairus.org, donate, because this is how it works. It's a 501c3, and they're bringing out great information.
That's the thing. Go to FAIR. Go to all their go to their webpage. Go to all their social media. Follow them. Sheriff Lamb. I mean, he's a huge presence in social media. Follow him. He's got all kinds of avenues where you can follow him. I'm on Instagram. I'm on X. I just started the X one. I wasn't really a fan of it, but I do a lot of my stuff on Instagram, and I want to continue growing the voice. I've been doing this for a long time as the voice of the agents, and I want to continue that because I think it's important. We have a lot of individuals out there that wish they could say something, but they can't because of administration or whatever it may be. I'm going to continue carrying that torch because it's important. I got something in the works as well. I don't want to let it out of the bag yet, but I got something that I'm working on that I'll be putting out on all my social media platforms soon as well. Thank you guys. We appreciate everything and all the watchers and listeners and everyone out there.
Brian, you gonna take us home?
Yeah, so I want to thank both of you for taking the time to be with us here today, and we will look forward to seeing your content and you guys out there in the field going forward.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, it's awesome having the guys with the 2 greatest cowboy hats in America here on our podcast.
I appreciate that.